Okay, so this is going to be a bit of fun this morning. We're going to take this in 3 stages. We're going to walk through the mechanics of how to put together and structure a presentation. We'll move beyond that to talk about how you make it interesting, add human interest in stories, adding spice, as I've said here. And then finally we'll move on to sort of the next sort of stage, which would be to speak about rhetoric and eloquence and so on, and being trying to get to be outstanding. First point I want to make is that most people are really bad at this, right? We don't grow up doing public speaking generally, and so most people are poor, and you don't have to be fantastic or outstanding. You just have to get good at it. And anybody can get good at this, right? And if you get good at it, you'll be king of the mountain. Now, you want to start off by agreeing, particularly because you're working in teams. It's not just you as an individual, although you might have one person present or 2. We might talk about that a little bit later. You don't want 6 people standing up, and being like a carousel rotating, hi, and I was next kind of thing. You don't want that. Because in a presentation, you have an opportunity to build a relationship. You've just got a few minutes, and the audience is going to get comfortable with you in about 3 minutes. And you don't want to press the reset button every time. So I would suggest that even though it's a group presentation, you select one person, perhaps 2, to actually communicate. It's obviously different if you're doing a bit of a skit and something like that people were doing yesterday, then that's fine. But in general, to tell the story, you don't want lots of changes, suggestion, right? But it's your prerogative to do whatever you want, but this is just my advice, having seen these things over the years. So as a team, you want to agree is what fundamentally is the objective of your presentation, right? What is that thing, right? Agree that. And then you move on. It's really important to think about when you're giving a presentation that you're not just conveying information, though you are, but it's more than that. You really want to try and touch people's emotions in some way. I'm going to show you a quote from a favorite author of mine, Maya Angelou, American author S. She wrote the book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which I would recommend if you haven't read it. This is one of the things that she said, is that people will not remember what you said, they won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. Right? I remember when I first read that, I thought it was really wise. And so at the end of the day, you need to stand out amongst 25 teams. How are you going to do that? If you end up touching people emotionally, you will stand out. Now, the objective of the presentation is something that you should write down. You say, well, why would I write it down? It's just self-evident, right? It's obvious, right? No, it's not. So write it down as a team. What is that thing, right? What is the ask that you're going to ask the judges to do, to sponsor the decision they're going to make, the money that they're going to give you, whatever. The very next thing you want to do after that is to define the close. You say, that's a bit sort of backwards. Why would you design the close first? You want to design the close of your presentation first because that's the most important thing, actually. And everything that you do in terms of the beginning and the body of the presentation, and even some of the stories that you'll tell as you take people on the journey through, is going to be aimed towards that bullseye. So begin by thinking about the close, right? So we've defined the objective, we've designed the close, now we'll go to the opening. The opening is the second most important bit of your presentation. As I've said briefly a moment ago, you've got 3 minutes to make your first impression. And I like this little thing I read. You never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? you guys got a view of me on the first day when I spoke, and you'd made your mind up within 2 or 3 minutes. Is this guy worth listening to, or is he not, right? It will be exactly the same with you. Particularly as you won't know the judges, they won't know you. There's different scenarios when you're a known quantity than if you're building rapport. So as you are all going to be building rapport, very few of you will have any relationship or have met in any way the judges that you're going to meet on December the 6th. Okay? So think about your opening, how you're going to get attention. Don't make it your first sentence. People take a minute or two to settle in. But within the first 2 to 3 minutes, you really want to hit them with something that's going to grab their attention. And if you've got a real attention grabber in the middle, at the end, and then some kind of story spice in the middle, which is all that you can really afford to do in a 10-minute presentation, you will stand out. So where are we? We've defined our objective, they've closed, I've created our opening, and now you're going to move on to the body of the presentation. How do we do this? Well, any mechanism you like. You can use big boards, you can use cards, you can use PowerPoint, moving slides around, however you want to do it as a team. But basically create one card, one piece of paper for every bit of your storyboard. I like to think of it like that. It's like a journey. I'll talk about that a little bit later and how you segue to different parts of the story. And as you go and define these things, there's different ways to do it, okay? Here's some suggestions, chronological order, topical order, all sorts of different ways of doing it. There is no one right way to do it. And best advice, received wisdom seems to be use more than one technique, okay? But however you're going to do it, you want to make it interesting and as a story and kind of flow. And every one of those cards, in effect, as you move them around, is a candidate for a visual aid. Some kind of slide, PowerPoint, picture, whatever. But don't slavishly say everyone has to become a slide. It's just a candidate. That's the operative word there, right? So now we've got our start, we've got our ending, we've got our body. But we're really not done yet. We haven't really begun, because the next thing you want to add is the spice. Because in order to not be boring, you need to do a whole range of things which will pique the interest of the audience and keep them the attention. You know, you never want the audience to be looking at your watch. It's okay for the speaker to look at the watch because that's respectful for the audience because you're watching your time. But you never want the audience to nod off, even if they've been out 3 o'clock in the morning, right? You want to hold the attention, and you're going to do that through adding spice. Now, what are examples of this? Well, war stories. See a story that you tell that involves you. That is really powerful. Because when you're being genuine as opposed to telling somebody else's story, it comes over. The sincerity comes through. So if you can sort of get your creative juices going and think about things in your life, of course you can embellish them, make them interesting, more funny if you want. But those are the kind of things that people really remember. And if you tell a story that in some way illustrates, it's not random, it illustrates the point that you're trying to make, they'll remember the point, right? And one of the sort of underlying objectives, as you'll see, is to be memorable, to stand out. General advice here is every 6 to 8 minutes, which is fine in a normal presentation if you've got 20 minutes, half an hour to talk. But if you've got just 10 minutes, you haven't got much room there. But you will have definitely got room for 1, possibly 2 interesting things, what we would call spice. When you've got all that figured out, now start to think about the visual aids. These things that you're going to put up that people look at. As people say, a picture tells the story of 1,000 words, right? Now, let me just explain an anti-pattern here, right? Some people think that if they really get a fantastic deck, that's the presentation, you see. And that is absolutely wrong. Of course, you want something for people to look at. It gives a bit of structure. It can help you look professional. But that's not the presentation. You don't want the focus of the audience to be on the slides or the board, if you choose to use the board. You want it to be on you and what you're saying. That's the important thing. This is variations on that, okay? So what you really want to focus on is the story and how the story hangs together and how you're going to tell the story, much more than fantastic graphics, right? When the judges go away, they're not going to say, yeah, he had brilliant graphics, right? Or look at those transitions he had in the PowerPoint, right? That's not going to be the conversation. So, do it, but don't overemphasize that, okay? And the last point is, keep it succinct. People don't want to know every bell and whistle of your idea. They want to know the essence of the idea. Their imagination can fill in all the blanks. Now, I put this in because I wanted to just guide in terms of the different kind of graphics that you can use, right? And I have a little soundbite here which I like, right? Great slides, a great presentation does not make. It does not. Okay? It is good to use pictures. It's very bad to have only words. And be careful about the clip art that you use. I've got some examples because I did this in India and one guy said to me, but you use clip art on. But I want to explain the good and the bad, the ugly of that. So I've got some examples here. See the stuff on the left, right? It's very sort of toy town. It doesn't look professional. It's very easy to find on the internet, but don't use it. But stuff on the right, which you'll also get for free on the internet, makes it look more pro, right? Now, I'm not a graphics person, but anybody can Google images and find an image and figure out how to put it on a slide and make it look pro, right? Every single image that you see I'm using in this little deck, I found on the internet, right? In a couple of days. Next point, your audience. You need to think about your audience and know who they are. What age group are they? What gender are they? Where do they come from? What's their background? Are they business or are they technical? Do you know them or do you not? Right? All of these things factor into and give you the opportunity to tailor what you're saying. You want to come over with credibility to them. Think about the cognitive load of what you're saying as well. To that audience. I mean, if I'm explaining the theory of relativity, if I could, I'm going to go a bit slower than if I'm explaining, well, what time's lunch today, right? So think about that as you're speaking, and so the amount of thought that they will need to apply to get you and to be with you and follow you as you tell your story, right? It's very, very important. And it's fine to go reasonably faster over the light pieces, but then to slow down and take time over the important things. Next thing you want to do is you want to create some kind of cheat sheet. Remember I said it's important to what you say, so you want to keep your points. And I've got illustrated here at the top right different people's approaches to that. So the one at the very top right is actually Churchill's, one of his famous speeches. See how he laid it out. Now, that suited his brain. Somebody else liked the highlights. See, highlights the key points. A lot of people like to draw little squiggles. The point of creating the cheat sheets is to have a summary of the story which you're not going to use. You don't want to be standing here with a piece of paper and doing that. It does not come across as professional. You may have it as a backup, and you could hold a sheet of paper if you want, or little cards and cards, just in case you get nervous and lose your way, or your next point is, then that's okay. But you certainly don't want to be reading your pitch. Okay? But having this thing and then spending a lot of time with the cheat sheet so that they're, they don't have to have a photographic memory, but if you look at something long enough, it's going to get burned in there, so you know your story. And then you're going to practice. And practice and practice. You do want to get good at this. You're only going to get really one shot in December, let's say. So you want to be able to say this in your sleep. You want to be saying the words in your dreams. Right? You want to be able to say it in the bath and sing it in the shower. Right? Practice. It makes it so much easier if the words can just trip off the tongue because you've thought about them. You've thought about how you're going to articulate the points. So at this stage we've got a little checklist, right? And you're going to get a copy of these slides. So as you go through your preparations, you can go through this checklist and tick them off and say, right, am I clear on all of these things? If you can answer all these questions and you've done your rehearsal, you'll be coming over really professionally. And you want to practice not in front just with yourself, or in the trees if you're out for a walk, but also with other people. See how it comes over, how it scans. If they're getting anything funny that you say and so on. So look how far we've come. Right? Defined objectives, designed our clothes, created our opening, we've outlined our body, we've added spice, we've designed the slides, we've tailored to the audience, we've thought about that. Thought about, we've created cheat sheets and we've rehearsed. We've rehearsed and we've rehearsed. So are we done? Not quite. Because what you want to do is not just be good, you want to be better than good, right? You want to stand out. So let's talk about moving on to excellence. You need to think about holding the attention of the audience, and there's different techniques to doing that, and it's only going to come by practice. I know that most people are not comfortable standing up in front of a group of people, right? Because we don't get a lot of practice on it. So you want to be doing this regularly, right? Particularly the individual or individuals who are going to be doing the pitch. You want to start doing it, you're going to bore your friends by doing this and practicing. Okay? You want to have those stories off pat. You're going to think about the pace. I've mentioned pace in terms of overall pace. We all have a tendency to want to speak fast, you see, because we want to get our story over. But when you're presenting, you want to be slower than normal as a default. Default rule, off the accelerator, you're kind of coasting through. But I've said pace squared because not only do you want to be generally slow, you also want to slow down particularly at some key point, right? So if I'm trying to explain quantum theory and Schrödinger's cat and where he is, I'm going to go real super slow. Was that a cat? Real slow. So that they remember. I've talked about the cognitive load already. The pregnant pause. Applying the power of the pregnant pause is really powerful for a couple of reasons. One is it helps people to assimilate, get the point. But it also demonstrates that you're in charge. For those 10 minutes when you're on the platform, You're the boss. You want to command. It's your prerogative. Everyone's there to listen to you. So you want to pause for effect as well as for understanding. You see, you can get away with things on a platform just because you have a platform, right? I can make asinine points from the mezzanine and get away from it because I'm up here and you're there. So use it, but don't abuse it. You can use authoritative quotes. Churchill said, Tony Blair said, Obama said. You can use things like that as useful. Facial expression is important, right? If I'm happy and it's coming through in my face, your audience will empathize with that. They can't help themselves. Well, he's enjoying himself. He's having a good time up there. I'm having a good time listening. Right? So you don't want to come across as fearful. Sometimes when people are speaking, it's a natural reaction to be kind of dead serious because they're thinking about their points and so on and so forth. You want to very deliberately practice a smile, even if it's a little bit false. The journey. So you're going to take your audience on a journey from the beginning. They know nothing about your idea other than maybe the name of your team or the name of your idea. They know nothing. And in 10 minutes, you're going to take them on a journey. And it has to flow. Right? You can't use some kind of like they used in the Greek tragedies where you had this Deus ex machina type thing, something just, suddenly appear over here, right? So it's not flowing. So you want to think about your segues from point to point. You walk them through. I've seen some people, and they bring up a slide and they're like, oh, right, that's what I'm talking about next, right? They're always surprised at what the slide is. Right? It comes over so badly. You want to know as you're coming up to the end of your one slide or one part of the story, you know exactly what the next one is, and you also know what the segue is. And you make it natural and flow. Think about these things. Be succinct. What is eloquence anyway, really? Here's quite a nice definition I found. An appeal to our reason, an appeal to our feelings, and an appeal to our aesthetic sensibilities. It's hard to put it in words. But we know it when we hear it. Can we be eloquent in 3 words? Let's ask Barack Obama. He would say, yes, we can. And he would repeat it often enough so the audience is saying it with him. Yes, we can. Let's ask Julius Caesar. Can you be eloquent in 3 words? Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. People have been saying that for 2,000 years. Can I be eloquent in 4 words? I have a dream that my 4 little children will grow up in America where they'll not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today, said Martin Luther King. Now think of the words he used there, the consonants of the expressions, right? He said, the color of their skin, the content of their character. That didn't come to him in the moment. He thought about what he was going to be saying. He had said that expression many times in all those various rallies that he went on, right? And then it came off the tongue. Now, you don't want the whole thing to be full of language like that, but you do want to have some things that you're going to say that people are going to say, oh. So think about sound bites. What are you going to say that people remember? Whispering is an interesting technique where you very deliberately lower your voice so that people give you attention. That might be appropriate, might not. Think about your tone of voice. You don't want to be monotone and boring. You want to vary it up and down, but be natural in it. If you're making a really very, very urgent point, you might want to get strident in your tone, and that's okay. But you don't want to make it all like that because that's wearisome on an audience. Think about slang. It's okay to use slang. Again, it's one of the privileges of speaking publicly is that you can say some slang, use some slang words. You can make up words, neologism. I've said on a couple of slides, I said succinctify. Is that a word? Is that a word? That was the question. Is that a word?
I think so.
Correct. It's not a word. I made it up. But I can, you see, because I'm up here. But people will remember that. You want to come across as credible, right? You want to believe in what you're saying. And that will be infectious. We're all going to be speaking English. This next point about the mother tongue is kind of important for those who are coming from India. I've coached them on that. They're in Scotland. They might want to use some Scottish expressions. Why? Identification with the audience. You made an effort. Eye contact's really important. You want to scan the audience so that they can see you, you see them. You can also figure out if, got you 5 minutes, if they're paying you attention. It's also good if somebody's misbehaving in the audience. Let's say they're on the phone or they're chatting. If I seen that, I would just eyeball that person for a moment or two, and they would get really super uncomfortable and they'd stop. So all things you need to learn, think about. It's okay to poke fun at individuals as well. If you know them, right? Use their name. Self-deprecation always goes down well. Using people's names. If you know the audience, you can call out the name, get the name right, especially if you're referring to a judge. Don't mix up Kristen and Kirsty. Get that one right. Final slide. I've said most of this on the way through. Try and display command and authority. If you do that in your presentation, they'll believe that you're somehow able to do whatever you're telling them. They'll believe you. It's okay to use a bit of emotion. That's okay, don't overdo it. But you can use emotion for effect. Asking rhetorical questions is okay, is good. Let's see what Obama thinks, and say something. Those kind of things. It's quite good to elicit an audible response. I did that a moment ago. I asked you a question because it gets the audience involved. They have to be paying you attention. I've talked about identifying with the audience. Repeating something for effect, as long as it's not wearisome, is good. And the refrain is where you're saying something, you keep saying it almost like a chorus, and you want them after the presentation to be saying that thing. So if you've got something, people will remember that very, very strongly. Last point here is the most important. You want to speak extemporaneously, which is a big word, which means you don't want to sound like you're reading. Even if you have memorized word for word and every pause, you want to be speaking naturally to the audience. Now, I know that politicians will use these auto cues, and they'll look left and right, and they'll try to make it natural. But you will not have an auto cue. So you want to speak as naturally as you can, and that's only going to come by practice. I promise you, if you do it and you're reading, no matter how good you are, you will come over as stilted. But if you speak naturally, have all the points, and then let the words flow, you'll do super well. Now, you're all heading towards December the 6th. You have a dream. You want to win. As Julius Caesar said, Veni vidi vici. You're going to come. You're going to see an audience of 200 people. You're going to conquer. Can we do it?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Very good. Thank you.